Hi guys, my name is Sam. Welcome back to my channel. Today I have for you my R Fantasy Bingo TBR. As you guys already know, I'm an avid romance reader, but one of my goals this year was to read at least 10 books outside of the romance genre. And while I'm already almost there on my own, I figured participating in this challenge would be a great way to help me not only succeed, but surpass that goal. Most of the books for this challenge I've picked have a romance element to it, so I think that I should have no trouble picking these up. However, I am not committing to these being the solid choices. These are just my ideas or what I will be slotting in. And I'm also not committing to doing a blackout, considering that's kind of crazy, being that I rarely read fantasy. I also want to mention that there are 25 prompts, obviously, because it's a bingo board, so a lot to go through, which means I will not be giving in-depth synopses to all these books. However, I will have them all down in the description box below in case you guys want to check them out and see what they're about. But I will, be giving little tidbits of things that I do know about the book, if applicable. And lastly, there is an easy, hard, and hero mode to this challenge. Obviously, I'm only going to be participating in the easy mode, and I'm not even going to be sending in my bingo card. This is just for me, but if you guys want any of that information, I'm linking the bingo card down below and all of that. So let's get into my picks for this bingo card. The first prompt is first in a series, and for this I'm going to be sliding in Belladonna by Adalyn Grace. This was a rec from Karina, and I just know that it's a romantic goth story with a murder mystery element. Next prompt is alliterative title, which means I have to pick a book that has more than one word with the same letter, and for this I'm going to be picking A Tempest of Tea. This follows Arthi, who has a tea room that doubles as a blood room for vampires in the nighttime, and that's really all I need to know to be intrigued and want to pick it up. The next prompt is Under the Surface, and for this I've chosen The Starless Sea by Erin Morganstern. The tagline for this said, "A timeless love story set in a secret underground world," and that just sounded really freaking good. I also saw that I think Kaylani and maybe a couple other people have read it and rated it 4 or 5 stars, so I think this will be a great choice. The next prompt is Criminals, and for that I picked Through the Wicked Wood by Kristen R. Moore. I know nothing about this book, but it is already on my 12 and 12, so I will be reading it this year. And speaking of this year, I forgot to mention that the challenge does run from April till March of next year, so I feel like that gives you a little bit extra time. Even though it's still a year-long readathon, it won't get lost in all the end of the year content. But moving on from that, the next prompt is Dreams, and for this I've slotted in The Lightning Thief, the first book in the Percy Jackson series by Riordan. I have watched the movie and watched the series and just really want to dive into this book and see if it's as good as the show is. Obviously, there are big advocates for the book is better than the movie or the movie is better than the book, whatever the case may be, and I want to see where I stand on that after trying my hand at this series. The next prompt is entitled Animals, and for that I've slotted in Shark Heart by Emily Habeck. This one is a book following a married couple where the husband is diagnosed with becoming a great white shark. And it sounds super weird, but I'm into it. And Karina also recently picked this up and absolutely loved it. So I'm super excited to try it myself. Next prompt is Bards. So you have to read a book where one of the characters is a musician, singer, or specifically calls themselves a bard, something like that. I didn't really understand this prompt, so I had to go digging through the recommendations that they have on the Reddit site. And ultimately, one that I found that ended up intriguing me was called Dark Water Daughter by H.M. Long. And this one follows a storm singer and a pirate hunter, both things that sound really freaking cool. The next prompt is to read a book that has a prologue and an epilogue, and most books have these, so this wasn't really hard. But for this, I slotted in another book suggested by Karina, and that is Rhapsodic by Thalassa. This is a fantasy romance between a siren and the bargainer that she owes favors to. And that sounds spicy and steamy and like a good freaking time. The next prompt is Indie, and for this I'm slotting in a Kindle book that I've owned for a while now, and that is Evergreen by Autumn Woods. I know nothing about it, but a couple of my friends were promoting it on Instagram when Stuff Your Kindle Day was happening. I believe she's also in one of the Geneva groups that I'm in, and that's how I saw it as well. So I'm super excited to get around to it and support somebody in the community. The next prompt is romantasy, and for that I'm sliding in Bring Me Your Midnight by Rachel Griffin, another one that I know nothing about except for the fact that it's a romantic fantasy, and all of my friends who have read it have loved it and said that the writing was really freaking beautiful, and I'm super excited to read it. Also, just wait, actually let me take it off. This alone was enough to sell me. It says, he comes alive in darkness, so darkness I became. Like, girl, you ate. The next prompt is Dark Academia, and for this I'm going to be reading Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo, which is a very well-loved book on BookTube, Bookstagram, all the book places. So I'm super nervous to read this one, but also super excited to finally get around to something that a lot of people love. The next prompt is multi-POV, and for this I chose Heartless Hunter by Kristen Ciccarelli. This is a steamy cat and mouse type of book following a witch and a witch hunter, and I'm super excited to read this one. The next prompt is a 2024 release, and for that I'm going to be sliding in A Fate Inked in Blood by Danielle L. Jensen, another one I don't really know anything about except for it has Norse mythology, but this book is all the rave right now. Like, it's probably the book club book of the month for 3 or 4 of the book clubs I've seen this month alone. So I'm super excited to get around to this one. Then we have Read a Book Where the Main Character Has a Disability, and for this I'm going to be picking one that I should have read a long time ago, and that is A Curse So Dark and Lonely by Brigid Kemmerer. This is a Beauty and the Beast retelling, hence why it's on my shelves, because I'm a fiend. And the female main character has cerebral palsy. So I am super excited to jump into this one. I've had it for 6, maybe 7 years now. So I don't know why I haven't picked it up yet, but I'm happy to slot it in for this. The next prompt is to read a book published in the 90s. And this one was super hard for me because I don't want to read no old shit. But I found one that I'm semi-interested in. The book that I chose for this was I Who Have Never Known Men. I saw Kayla from Books and Lala recently read this and enjoy it, and I believe it just follows a group of women who are stuck underground and then gain their freedom. It's a short story though, so I might be able to get around to this. I just don't know how intrigued I am to read a classic. The next prompt is Orcs, Trolls, and Goblins, oh my, and for this you have to read something with one of those characters in it. And this one was pretty easy for me because I still haven't read Legends and Lattes. So that's what I'll be slotting in for this, and I don't really know much about it. Maybe she owns a cafe, I'm not too sure, but I'm excited to read it nonetheless. The next prompt was to read a space opera, and this one was hard because I don't want to read Star Wars, but I looked up a list on Goodreads, and apparently Red Rising by Pierce Brown is categorized as a space opera, which is already on my shelves, so that's what I'll be picking. I don't know anything about it except for that, and I'm glad that I had something that wasn't Star Wars to fit into this category. The next prompt is to read a book by an author of color, and for this we have another Karina suggestion, and that is The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Mandama. I don't know anything about this. She told me that it had cozy found family vibes, and I'm here for it. The next prompt is to read a book about survival, and for this I chose Blood and Steel by Helen. I can't pronounce her last name, but the cover will be up here somewhere. And this one is an enemies to lovers slow burn romantic fantasy, so I'm super excited to read this one. I don't really remember how I found out that it followed survival, but I believe that the female main character is trying to survive trials in order to become somebody in the war, and the rules were very bland on what books counted and what books didn't. It was kind of like a, if you think it should count, then it does. So I'm counting that. The next prompt was to read a book that you judged by its cover. And for that, I have The Scarlet Veil by Shelby Mahirin. This is the same author of the Serpent and Dove series, which I haven't read. I saw this on Aubrey's from ABC's channel, and I was really intrigued by the cover. It's a dark fantasy romance with vampires, and yeah, that's all I know. And we have Small Town, and this is another one that I had a really hard time with and is definitely subject to change, just because I really only picked it because it was one of the only recommendations that I knew what the book was, and that is Starling House by Alex E. Harrow. Because I'm not really familiar with fantasies having small towns. Like, I didn't know that was a thing, so it was hard for me to figure out what book to use for this. But this is one that they had in their recommendations list on Reddit again, and it's about a haunted house, I think. The next prompt is short stories, and for this one, I am finally slotting in Assassin's Blade, obviously, because I have yet to read the Throne of Glass series. I haven't even finished ACOTAR. We ain't gonna talk about that, but I have yet to read the Throne of Glass series, and I figured that since this is a short stories prompt and that is a short stories book, this would be the perfect time to start it. Also, if you're wondering why I didn't slot in Sarah J. Maas for any of the other prompts, because she could definitely work for a lot of these, it's because one of the rules of the bingo, even though, like I said, I'm only really participating for me, is that you pick one author per prompt. So I really tried to stick to at least that, because that would help me broaden my horizons. The next prompt is Eldritch, and I didn't know what the hell that meant, but when I looked it up, it said that it was books that include weird, strange, unnatural, supernatural type of things. And so I'm gonna count something that I've already read just to get a head start on the challenge, and that is Solo Leveling. This is a graphic novel series that is already an anime, but I wanted to read the series with my boyfriend, and I don't really know what it's about. I can only tell you what I read in this volume, but that would be like spoilery in case you wanted to read this. Not sure that many of you do, but it is really good, and I can definitely tell you that it has strange, unnatural, supernatural things going on. I mean, they wander into a freaking cave on a mission because they're hunters. Statues start coming to life and killing motherfuckers. So this fits, I think, and I'm gonna use this. The second to last prompt is reference material, and I picked King of Battle and Blood by Scarlett St. Clair. This one is a marriage of convenience, kind of, to end a war that's happening in this story. And the female main character has to marry a vampire king, but I think only her side knows that they then want her to kill him. So I think this is going to be really interesting. I'm super excited to read this one. And in case you were wondering, this is the reference material, a map in the beginning. And last but not least, the last prompt is to read a book club pick. And like I said, they have hard mode for this. So in the hard mode, you would have to read one of their book club picks in the current month and participate in the discussion. But for me, I could pick from their catalog of past picks. And so I decided to go with A Study in Drowning by AVID, another one I don't know much about, but I have seen a lot of people rave about. So I'm super excited to pick it up. And this one is another one that I think is most likely subject to change because they have so many to choose from. Like, they have been doing this, I want to say, for 10 years. But anyways, that is everything that I am planning to read tentatively for my Art Fantasy Bingo Challenge. If you guys are participating, please let me know down in the comments what books you're reading or something that would work for these prompts as suggestions in case I want to swap anything out. And if you're not participating, you can just leave me a sword emoji for all the fantasy going on. But thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate it as always. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.